to plant-powered hormones. And today we're going to be discussing how eating more plant-based can truly help you on all avenues of life. Everything from your current state of health and wellness to your hormones to mental clarity and whatnot. So some of this information may be brand new to you. So just take it all in. And we're going to be covering this over 2 days. So we'll work at it. There'll be time for questions and whatnot. So welcome. I'm glad you're here. So thanks for joining. So you're in the right place today if you're tired of the struggle with everything from weight loss and muscle gains, and even maybe seeing improvements in your endurance as far as even something that may seem as simple as walking up and down the steps to, running a longer distance or biking at a longer distance. So within that tired of the struggle, often there's lifestyle induced conditions, everything from high blood pressure to heart disease, as well as even like chronic fatigue can be kind of looped into that as well. And if you're experiencing overwhelm, because there's so much information out there in the world across all avenues, I always make the joke that you can find anything on the internet and you can always find something for what you are looking for, as well as the argument of the other side of that. So within all of that, taking that into account, it can cause a lot of overwhelm, especially when you may start something and maybe you don't see results right away. That can really cause you to start this spiral that we'll talk about a little bit later today. And you're also in the right place too if you are ready for change. If you've maybe been stuck, it's time to do something a little bit differently so that you can get a different results. And you're also in the right place if you're really ready to quit dieting and truly just start living life as your own best self in the way that you want to. So, we're going to be covering lots of things over the next 2 days, but we're going to start with talking about overload and overwhelm and how that physically and mentally affects the body, as well as how and why eating more plant-powered affects your body and supports your overall health and hormones, as well as a little bit of the basics of plant eating, how daily movement, everything from just how you move around your day to day, like that's at work, at home, to actual intentional exercise, how that can help you create a happy body and healthy hormone harmony. And as well as, how you can start to take some action steps to get results. And then, as well as whole pictured living, like what truly does living life holistically strong and beautiful mean? So, a little bit about me. I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I'm a coach, I'm a lover of all things of health and wellness. But it didn't always used to be that way. From the time I was about 8 years old, I really learned the power of nutrition and the hold that it had on your overall health. I had headaches every day of my life, and when I was little, my mom worked tirelessly to go and find, what the causes of those things were. And I can remember one time we went to the library and I was laying on her lap and she was reading this giant stack of books, like searching for an answer as to what was causing my headaches and whatnot. And I had eaten something that day and I was just so sick. And that like sticks out in my mind and whatnot. So really, my mom introduced me more or less to the power of the nutrition just by finding out, truly what was causing those headaches. And it truly turns out to be that it was some of the foods that I was eating. And we didn't find that out for quite some time. And after being turned away from doctors, just saying that I was making it up. But now being a mom myself, I know like when your kid is not making something up and they're truly not themselves and they're not feeling well. So all of that really propelled me forward, both into my studies at Ohio State University in psychology, and integrative approaches to health and wellness. And from all of that, really kind of setting me off a little bit more after I had my 2 kids, I really just wasn't feeling well. I felt like I was doing all the right things, exercising, eating, counting calories, macros, and all of that, but nothing really seemed to work. So what I actually had done is one day I just had the inspired thought and I looked over to a bookshelf that was in our office, and I saw there a book that I had read back in college. And right then and there, it kind of sparked like, hey, that's your answer. And so I leafed through it and I just really started making small changes along the way. And really, that's how I've gotten to be here where I am now, because I challenged myself to make a massive shift in the direction of health. And now I get to do that with other people. And I really love that. So, that's just a little bit about me. I would love to get to know a little bit more about you. If you want to put in the chat where you're from or where you're coming from, or maybe what you're hoping to get out of today's call and tomorrow's call too. And so then I can kind of help make sure I get some of those answers. And you're welcome to put anything in there as well as we go. And if you're watching the replay, you can comment on it as well, and I will be able to see those. Or you're welcome to shoot me an email if you have something specific to your case. So, with that, let's go ahead and get into it here. And our bodies truly are self-healing machines. If you think about it, you get a little cut or scrape on your hand, and sometimes overnight, but within a day or two, it's usually scabbed over and healed up. Sometimes, if it's a bigger or a deeper cut, you may need to put a little neosporin on it and a band-aid and take care of it. But overall, you don't have to do anything to really heal your body. The catch is that with all of our overload and overworking that we put on our body, that actually brings down our system, and our bodies are not able to as efficiently heal ourselves. So that's what we're going to talk about here in this next little bit. So if you consider all the things in your everyday life, everything from your stress to lack of sleep, maybe you're not drinking as much water, environmental toxins, beauty products, not eating whole plant foods, or consuming a lot of junk food, the screen time, and even down to your lack of connection and interaction with other people. If you take all of these things into account, you'll begin to really start to feel and understand how so many of us are overloaded and overworked. And that shows up in our bodies, whether you're recognizing it or not. And these are just some of the signs and symptoms that your body is working overtime. Everything from recurrent headaches, digestive disorders, food intolerances, muscle aches and weaknesses, hormonal issues, things from infertility, menstrual disorders, allergies, chronic fatigue and brain fog, food cravings, skin disorders, anxiety, and any other things that you can really come up with. I always like to say that signs and symptoms in the body are our bodies screaming out for help. And if we can tune into them and really dive in and kind of work to find the cause of what's actually causing that, then we can begin to create that ultimate health so that our bodies truly can start to heal themselves. So, if you're experiencing any of those signs and symptoms, then it's time to do something different to get a different result. Often we stay stuck, keep doing the same things over and over again, often because we just don't know any better. And that's not an issue unless we don't recognize that it is really time to do something different and really put that effort forward. So if we come into talking about this a little bit more, we really are at a tipping point. And the tipping point is a point in the conversation through all of this where you kind of get to the edge, and it's where you're almost falling off, but you're not quite falling off yet, of where you feel that you may need to make a change. And it's kind of like that teeter totter of, the domino effect where, you get to that point, and if you take that step, all the things kind of roll out. And when we're talking about this is really talking about our healthcare system. And how our medical system is really set up for sick care and emergency care. And while that is really great if you're walking into an emergency room with a heart attack, it's not so great if you're walking in there with something like a chronic issue for high blood pressure, where the medical system is set up to help you manage those things. It's not actually set up to help you either prevent it or to be proactive and actually really get to the bottom of what's causing it and to make those changes that need to be made along the way. Somebody else in our waiting room here. See if I can. Okay. So if we move through the conversation here, yeah, let's get my cursor back on. Yep. Okay. So when we continue to talk about this preventive healthcare aspect of things, we're really talking about what is based on being reactive. And this is something I learned when I was working in the insurance industry, really before preventive care was even really part of um, our healthcare system or even part of our insurance basis. And those inner preventive well visits and blood work really look at the numbers and don't mean anything to the medical system until you get to that tipping point where you actually start to qualify for a diagnosis. And this is the point here where when we're talking about reactive, because if you see the trend moving towards that diagnosis, often it is not, nothing is done with it until the it gets to the point where you actually have to do something. So this is where when I talk about we're we want to focus on actually preventing getting to the point of needing that preventive care. So we can ask ourselves then, what is and what if there was a better way to handle these things? And that is really where it comes into being proactive and taking care of yourself in a self managed way. And this truly is a better way to jumpstart your health because when we're looking at this, you're really being proactive instead of taking it and trying to prevent what's already happening or reversing it. So this shifts that mindset from really just not trying to reverse it, but focus on the lifestyle that might actually be creating the condition that you might be moving towards. So, this helps you create that lifestyle when we focus on it to create the flow between the mind, body, and the soul so that you really start to feel aligned and alive. And this is where we start to take our information and put it into action so that we can be proactive. So as we focus on that lifestyle, you also want to focus on who you want to become throughout your journey because it's just not about another quick fix. So many of us have spent our whirlwind in quick fixes, 6-week diets or things like that, only to have that yo yo effect and be pulled back. And then kind of really be on that roller coaster of the up and down, both in our health as well as maybe even when it comes to our weight. And while that up and down can be frustrating mentally, it's actually detrimental to your insides because when we have that boomerang effect or the yo yo from, creating that, maybe drop in weight, the weight that we actually put back on is often visceral fat. And that is actually what more or less strangles your organs on the inside to really affect them negatively so that we really want to do our best to avoid that boomerang effect. So when we begin to focus on who you want to become and focusing on that lifestyle, you have to start exactly where you are. And when you start here in this place, right where you are, and recognize where you are on your journey, it's easy to move forward because you're not judging yourself against somebody else and you're not trying to be perfect. What you're really trying to put forward here is your own excellence. And when we start to focus on that, that's where real change can happen. So if we take a look here, staying on the mindset here of overload and overwhelm, this is the spiral that so many of us have been in and potentially will be on again in life. But if you can take this and understand it, you can have the awareness to be able to catch yourself, to help yourself get out of this and overcome it. So if we start here, we often have that first spark of inspiration to actually start to take action. And from this, we start to do our research and looking at maybe some of the different avenues to get the result that we're looking for. But what that often rolls into is information overload. And through that overload and overwhelm, that then causes us to start to resist to that change that we're trying to make. Because often we do too much too soon. Sometimes it's just flat out confusing. So it's overwhelming because you don't know what to do or what steps to take, as well as then that just leads right into staying stuck. And we often stay in that staying stuck place until something else happens. And that gives us back either the inspiration to take action, or sometimes we have what's often referred to as like a rhino moment where something in life happens that you have to make a change. And if we're talking about healthcare, that could be something like a diagnosis of something, a sudden heart attack or something like that, where life really makes you shift and reconsider how you're doing things. So, if you've been in this overwhelm and overload spiral, I hope this hits home for you, because what we're really working towards here is as we continue to focus on our lifestyle and making lifestyle changes, all of this begins to peel away so it's not so overwhelming. If we truly do begin to start exactly where we are, in the shoes that we're wearing, exactly as we are, we can take that information and put it together with actually taking action. And that in turn then does give us the results that we're looking for. But the point is that you have to be clear on what's really holding you back in order to take those right action steps in order to get those results. And this can be different for everybody. So if we come back to this overload and overwhelm spiral, reflecting on it for a moment and truly asking yourself, like, what is keeping you stuck on your journey? What's holding you back? Is it the action part? Is it the information overload part? So, pausing to reflect on that, we can then move into our information, action, and results timeline here. And there's a couple different buckets that I like to put people into here. And so often these are, you can find yourself in one or sometimes two of these. So our first bucket is where you're just starting off, where you're the person who maybe this is all brand new to you. You maybe just had a life instance that has sparked you and you're ready to make change, but you don't know how or where to begin. My second bucket here is that you're pushing too hard. So this might be a place where you've kind of been at this over and over again, and maybe you're working out a lot, you're overtraining, or you're on the other side of things when it comes to your nutrition. Maybe you're not eating enough, or maybe you're trying to push too much of a certain type of macro, and that's holding you back. And for my third bucket, we talk about the inconsistent efforts. And this is a bucket where I find a lot of individuals in. And this is often where I myself find myself tripping up on a lot of different things, but having that inconsistent effort. And by that, I mean, maybe you are working out and you're eating really well, keeping up with your morning routine, your gratitude journal, all of those things for 5 days of the week. But then the weekend comes around and off you throw away all of your routine and you live your best life on the weekend. Well, what happens with that inconsistency, though it may not seem like a lot, those cheat days or weekend habits that we may have could actually really be holding us back. And Sometimes these are just the little shifts along the way where we need to truly go back to what I was talking about when it comes to that lifestyle focus and truly become who it is that we want to become so that we can really keep our efforts consistent across the way and making them manageable so that we can make massive shifts and massive change by just little things. So we're constantly not having to make up for maybe what we haven't been able to do. And then my last bucket is for those of you that just like to wing it. Um, so if you're don't really have a plan and you just show up and you go with it, I can respect that, but sometimes that can be holding you back as well. So if you want to put in the chat what's holding you back, that's great for me to see. And if you're willing to share that information. So if we continue this conversation along the way with our information point here, information is so easy to access. We kind of even talked about that earlier in our conversation today, that you can get it from books, podcasts, social medias. It's constantly being thrown at us. You can Google anything. You can ask ChatGPT for a lot of different plans and whatnot. So it's the information is just so vast at this point that that is a piece that can truly lead to overwhelm. And it's also very simple to put out a plan on paper, pull out your calendar and say, all right, this is what I'm going to do. And that's one step of it. But if we don't actually take the action to do those things, then we don't get to that results. So when we have this information overload, that can really lead to overwhelm or confusion, or kind of being in that place where you're inconsistent with your efforts because you're constantly analyzing where you're at, and that leads to that analysis paralysis. So when we talk about action here, we are really looking for consistency over quick fixes. And this is something where when you're in this space, if you take those consistent actions and show up for yourself on a regular basis, doing those same things that you know that will lead to success, you will find success along the way. It may be slower than you're hoping for, because often those things that we're doing in this action stage are sustainable habits. So many times there's programs out there where it's like, hey, we're going to do a 5-day reset and go all in for a couple of days. Well, those are great starting points and launch pads. But what happens so often is you do those 5 days and then you go right back to those habits that you had before. And that's what I was talking about with that yo-yo aspect of things. The constant pull and tug is hard on our bodies, it's hard on our mind, and it's even hard on our spirits when it comes to getting real results. So when we put in our hard work of showing up day in and day out, even if it's not perfect, when we take that progress over perfection, because we're working on that muscle of consistency and sustainability, you really can see that progress over your perfection comes along the way as you truly become who you are wanting to become in that version that you want to be. So if we get to the fun part where we all want to be here, when we talk about results, it's about celebrating the wins, like big and small. And this is a place that I feel that women in general, we're not very good at celebrating all the things. So often we have little good things that happen to us along the way, but we don't pause to celebrate that, hey, our day went to shit and we were still able to keep it together. And maybe we didn't get to go for our 30-minute walk like we had hoped, but we got a 5-minute walk in. Or maybe you switched from having that walk and you took care of yourself instead and you made yourself a bubble bath. Those are the things that we have to peel back and truly celebrate along the way, because life really isn't all about the push and the shove. It's not about the give and not the take back. We have to put ourselves back on our list. And even as a mom, that's something that you start to often see along the way. Like, you will drop anything to take care of your littles or a family member, and you will put yourself on the back burner. So when we're here, we really want to take those action steps to fill ourselves up so that we can get to those results, which all of that leads us to living that aligned and energized and fulfilling life. So we talked about here that overload and the overwhelm that it can cause, and how it can really paralyze us from taking the action steps that we need to in order to get those results. And one of the reasons that is because we're not looking at the whole picture. We're not looking at the whole life of the individual that we're trying to become. And this is important because even when we're talking about healthcare, often we go to a physician that is specialized in one specific area. And while that's where their expertise lies, they're also not equipped to help handle all the other different areas of your life. And while no one person should be responsible or have that heavy weight on their shoulders to be the expert in everything, you do have to look at the bigger picture and see how everything is coming together. An example of this in healthcare could be something like with medicine interactions and whatnot. If one physician gives you something and another one gives you something else, there could be a interaction between those medicines that maybe might make them not as effective, or that could cause detrimental effects. So in that case, we're able to have your pharmacy where you maybe get everything. They're able to see the whole picture. But if you, as the individual in your own silo, or the physician in their silos, they may not see that whole picture. And when it comes to building your life and who you want to become, you are really the master of that for yourself. And it's about pausing to look at the whole picture for yourself so that you can then build the life that you truly desire. So, when we talk about all the puzzle pieces, we're talking everything from nutrition and movement, mindset, sleep, self care, as well as joy. And you put all those puzzle pieces together, and you get to this point where you can start to live your life holistically strong and beautiful as defined by you. And this is where, when I talk about living life holistically strong and beautiful, this is what resonates so deeply, is that it is truly your life, living it in the way that resonates for you exactly where you are right now. So if you look down at your feet, wherever you may be, you see your shoes, you see your feet firmly on the ground. That is your current place. That is your current place to start, exactly where you are. So, in order to get to this, if we take a look back at the puzzle pieces, you do have to often pick a piece to start focusing on to begin to build the bigger picture. And in many women's lives that I talk to, we often focus on the exercise and the movement piece first, often because it's what's semi familiar. Often it's what we're told, that in order to create that calorie deficit, in order to lose weight or feel better, you need to move your body. The more you move, the more you can eat, is what I've had somebody tell me before, is the belief that her foundation has been built on. But what really needs to happen here is to focus on your nutrition, because it's one of the most underestimated pieces of things. So when we talk about this, as I said, kind of in the introduction, I really learned the power of nutrition back when I was 8 years old. And I've learned it and relived it a few times in my life. So this is why I'm so passionate about plant-based living, and how incorporating more fruits and vegetables into your daily life can really transform your health, your mindset, and your hormones, even, which is why we're here today. So, in order to set our foundation to learn about how, having plant powered hormones can help you on your journey, then we need to understand some key pieces of nutrition. So, if we take that layer off here, you truly are what you eat. Everything that you consume is what your body uses to create all the cells in your body, from your skin to your organs to your hair to your eyelashes, all of it. everything that you put into your body magically takes into its stomach, distributes it exactly where it needs to go. Our bodies are incredible machines. And yet, this is the place that we often overlook when it comes to creating that healthier lifestyle. So, what you eat really are the building blocks and the roots of all of your cells and ultimate health. So, when it comes to our nutrition, it impacts absolutely everything. We're talking energy, we're talking about hormones, we're talking about weight, whether it's high or if it's actually maybe you're on the lower end of the scale and you need to not earn some weight. Not you don't need to earn weight, but if you need to gain some weight on that spectrum of things, as well as your metabolism and your immune system, as well as any chronic illnesses or autoimmune conditions that you may have. So, literally, nutrition impacts everything. And this is a statistic that I often come back to because to me, it is just tall telling of how impactful nutrition and lifestyle can be. And the statistic is that you can prevent more than 90% of all cancers and more than 95% of heart attacks and strokes with just a nutritional and lifestyle focus. And this is something that is very eye-opening when you begin to hear it and you start to embrace it when you're talking about, creating that lifestyle. So we need to start taking and making that mindset shift to start focusing on eating for our health and not just for weight loss, which is something that is more or less our old school mindset when it comes to, our diet and exercise that so many of us have been ingrained in us from often the time when we were little. So when we do what by doing this, these efforts almost begin to truly feel effortless just by living your life when we start to incorporate them into our life because it's our lifestyle. And when we're really focusing on our health, it makes choices a lot easier because we're doing something that supports the person that we want to become along the way. So, and one of the best ways to do this is to truly get the majority of your calories from whole foods that are plant-based. And what I mean by whole foods that are plant-based, I'm talking about foods that are actually plants, things with very few ingredients that are more or less in their edible state. So if we're talking about plant-based, you can go down the grocery aisle and find a whole lot of things that are overly processed, that are full of sugars, that are full of oils and salts and fats that don't need to be there, yet it could still be plant-based. So when we're really looking at that, we're talking about the whole food in general. So when you start to eat this way that promotes your overall health, your body is transformed and it can heal itself. The plants and the micronutrients and the phytonutrients that come from all the plants, the greens, and vitamins and minerals that are all in those plants and vegetables act like little scrubbers and they go in and heal everything up and really start to repair what damage you may have done from lifestyle choices or along the way with, maybe over exercising and things like that. So, if we continue to talk about eating for your health promotion, the standard American diet is full of disease and inflammation promoting foods. And when I'm talking about those, I'm talking about the fully processed foods that are often, in the grocery aisles that are full of preservatives that really our bodies are not meant to process. And if we peel back these layers here, and if we're honest with ourselves, we all know that fruits and vegetables are healthy for us, right? That's not within question here. The question really becomes how do we incorporate more and how do we create a better habit for it versus just being a product of our environment and maybe that's the only option and grabbing for that. So it's about really doing our best here to start to plan for some of the things that come up and really being intentional when it comes to taking the action steps onto who we want to become. So, the standard American diet, which is full of things such as crackers, oils, snack foods, processed foods that come out of a plant or in a box, the science is very clear that the whole food plant based diet is the only scientifically and clinically proven diet or way of eating that's proven to prevent and reverse lifestyle induced medical conditions. So, everything from blood pressure, cholesterol, diabetes, and even cancers. So here we shift back to that conversation that we had earlier about whether you're being reactive when it comes to your health and wellness, or if you're going to be proactive when it comes to your health and wellness. And this is why eating more plant based foods truly do support your body. So, if we get into the point here where how these plant foods actually support our body, we're going to be talking about how it balances your blood sugar because it reduces your energy crashes and cravings as well as your mood swings along the way. Plant based eating helps you reduce inflammation because whole foods calm the nervous system and the immune system and can help lower that cortisol that may be spiking in your system, as well as supporting your estrogen and progesterone balances. And one of the ways it does this is it actually, the fiber in the fruits and vegetables that you're eating actually help detox some of those extra estrogens that you may have in your body, as well as boosting your energy and metabolism because those nutrient dense foods truly do fuel you efficiently. I talk about that a lot, consciously fueling yourself. So, putting into your body what you need to help you get through the day with mindfulness versus just grabbing for whatever is a quick grab, whether it's at the grocery, the gas station, or perhaps even in your pantry. And then plant foods also help support your brain and mood function by providing omega 3s from things such as chia seeds, flax seeds, or walnuts. And then those things really do help reduce your anxiety and depressions and stabilizing how your cells actually do repair themselves. Omega 3s are really important for that. So, if we continue to talk about how plant based foods work in our body, this is some of the science behind how this helps your hormones. And again, we're talking high fiber. So, when you eat something like an apple, yes, there may be sugar in it, but it's perfectly put together by Mother Nature to have the fiber and other nutrients that actually make it be full of micronutrients that help your system digest those sugars and helps your body actually use the nutrients that are in it. And when I'm talking about that versus a sugar cube, we're talking about that there's a difference in how it affects your body. And so that is one of the ways that the plant-based whole foods can help, stabilize your hormones as well as your gut microbiome. They're jam packed with phytonutrients and antioxidants, and that helps reduce the oxidative stress, which the oxidative stress is what can cause mutations in your cells that then lead to cancers or other issues, as well as like slowing your aging and help support fertility, as well as providing the healthy fats and providing vitamins and nutrients that sometimes aren't really available in either animal products or in a lot of those processed foods, because they're often added, which makes them a little bit less bioavailable. So your body isn't able to use them as effectively as if you can get them from the food itself. And then, of course, protein from plants that helps, gives you steady energy, helps support your metabolism as well as your health. So, if we talk about our plant powered nutrition and conditions that eating a more plant based diet can help you with, we're talking about things such as PMS and painful periods, irregular or heavy cycles, perimenopause symptoms, everything from hot flashes, night sweats, as well as your mood changes. PCOS is often helped by a plant powered diet, as well as endometriosis and supporting your thyroid, definitely supporting weight management and some of those stubborn belly fat. as well as your heart health, cholesterol, chronic fatigue, and low energy. Cancers and inflammation is definitely powered through plant-based nutrition. So the big question here is, who do you want to become and how do you want your life to look? So when we take in, excuse me, when we take in all of the information that we talked about so far in today, I gotta get a drink. Excuse me. So when we talk about how plant foods can help support your body from an overall health perspective, as well as from the aspect of your hormones, we really covered that here in the last little bit. And it's really about supporting your system so that it can help support you along the way. So when it comes to asking yourself this, who do you want to become and how do you want to live your life? It's about taking responsibility for your choices along the way, as well as then choosing your thoughts that you have around this so that you can create those mindsets to be able to move beyond that mindset of working hard and really trying to be on the reactive side of things and switching that mindset to be on the proactive side of things so that you can get to the point where you actually can do more prevention instead of actually preventing just the end result of that chronic illness. Okay, so that's a lot of information in one fell swoop here for one day. Tomorrow, our focus will be more so on movement and how you can take this information and apply it into your day to day life with some practical tips along the way. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It was a pleasure and enjoy the rest of your day. And go live your life holistically strong and beautiful.